Good evening, brothers and sisters, and welcome to the BMW headquarters here in Novi, Michigan. We're coming to you today to talk a little bit about, or have a conversation about the current round of bargaining, the current state of affairs, where the BMW is, and how we compare that to what the tentative agreement that the CBG has done. There's been lots of questions, lots of concern, and from the get-go I've said bargaining is about, for each rail union, its members, its demographics, and its craft needs. And so we have a large group of railroad unions that have bargained for a tentative deal that is basically laid out in their press release to some degree. A lot of questions came about the press release when it came out, and we'll hang all this stuff on our website, but it's this press release from SMART and the Coalition of Bargaining Unions. If you read their press release, and some of our members did, and some of our officers read it in the field, and thought, yeah, this sounds, while not great, it sounds okay. But the problem with that is when you read the press release, you need to go read the fine print, and there's 24 pages of fine print. It's called the mediation agreement. You need to go to our website and read that and compare it to the press release. If you think they match up, then it may be a good deal. When I read the press release, it seemed a little bit kiltered away from what the actual agreement says. So we're at a point where we have 6 unions that have agreed to a tentative agreement that will affect the BMW. Anyone in the rail industry that knows the bargaining history and knows how the Railway Labor Act works and knows how bargaining works, and the bargainers for the CBG know exactly what happens when you have that large group in the rail industry bargain for a contract. In normal times and in hard times, when someone that large sets a pattern, it's very hard to break. It's very difficult. The BMW all along has been trying to coordinate with the other bargaining crafts. We're not criticizing the crafts, and we're not criticizing anything they do other than the terms and conditions of the agreement as applied to BMW members. This agreement applied to the BMW members will put an onerous burden on BMW members with their health care. It'll be exactly like the last round of bargaining in 2012 when we went from managed care to a 95-5 plan. And so that wasn't good enough. This time it's a double down. It's gone from managed care to 95-5 plan to a 90-10 plan. And it's just a costly burden on BMW members that use the health care. In a nutshell, it's the basic same argument I had last round. It's a move by the industry and some rail unions to make the sick people pay. In this union, we've always had the philosophy that we're our brother's keeper, that we bargain together, and we have benefits and wages shared together. Any chain, any group, any bargaining group is only as strong as its weakest member or its weakest link. So we certainly don't want our weakest among us, the people who are unfortunate enough to be unhealthy or have medical issues, to have to pay the full burden of health care. That's, in my view, the reason you belong to a union or association. You belong so that you can share the burden of keeping your community alive or keeping your health care going or whatever it is. It's we all take pride in helping one another and being our brother's keeper. So all this stuff will be hung on the website. You should take the time to go look at it. You should get yourself a calculator, and if someone tells you there's fuzzy math or fake news, you should read what is on our website and any other resource you can find about this agreement and the effects of the agreement, and take your calculator and figure out how it affects your family and what's coming down the road. I can tell you that BMW is going to continue to fight. We went out at the beginning of bargaining. We hired experts. We hired an economist that's been in the rail industry for his dad and him for 60 or 70 years, doing this economic work for about all rail unions, a lot of airline unions, and many transportation unions. He's a world-renowned and well-respected economist. We hired a world-renowned actuarial firm, Chiron, to look at healthcare and how we could find ways to save money in that plan. We went out and did that, and we tried to share it with every rail union and the railroads to find a way to bargain so our members didn't have to pay any more for out of pocket for their healthcare. The fact of the matter is, we found as much savings without the member paying another penny out of his pocket, any rail worker, if we could adopt some small minor changes in the way healthcare is delivered. And having said that, I'm going to let Peter Kennedy, who does healthcare for us, go through some of the healthcare stuff, and then I'll talk a little bit more about some follow-up stuff.
Thank you, President Simpson. I'm going to do just a brief analysis of the CBG's tentative agreement and focus on the two key aspects of that agreement, which is healthcare and wages. And so, as President Simpson pointed out, the changes agreed to by the CBG and the tentative agreement on the healthcare are extremely onerous to members, their families, and their children, particularly when they get sick. The total approximate savings annually is about $120 million per year, when all the total changes as tiered or as stair-stepped into total functionality result in that $120 million annual savings. And that comes from two places, but both of those places involve you. The first place that savings comes from is out of your pockets, from the railroad, or from your pockets to the railroads. Approximately $70 million annually in healthcare costs are transferred onto your backs. That comes in the form of increased cost sharing, increased co-pays, co-insurance, deductibles, and out-of-pocket maximums. The second place that those savings come from is approximately $50 million annual savings in plan design changes, because the increased cost sharing will deter you or discourage you and your families from utilizing your benefits when you need the necessary care and treatment from your doctors and treating physicians. These annual savings continue to increase to the plan with medical inflation as more workers reach their deductibles and co-insurance maximums. And really the bottom line is this: the plan design changes that are presented in the CBG tentative agreement are to discourage sick railroaders, their wives, and their kids from utilizing benefits. And when you do use them, you're going to have to pay a lot more than what you currently do. We already pay enough for our health care. Today, railroad employees pay roughly $3,900 a year for their health insurance on average. What that includes is your 12 months of monthly cost sharing, the average monthly cost of deductibles, co-insurance, and co-payments. At $3,900 a year, that's plenty to be already paying. But with these tentative agreements, if ratified, by 2020, half of all railroad workers are going to be paying over $5,000 per year for their health insurance. By 2020, 1 in 8 railroaders will pay over $7,500 per year for their health insurance. And by 2020, 1 in 14 railroaders will pay approximately $9,000 per year for their health insurance. What this boils down to is just an outright cost shift directly to sick members, their wives, and their children. And this is uncalled for. Really in a time, as President Simpson pointed out, when the research has been done and there are other ways to get to these savings without taking that money from you. Now, in regards to wages, this is really a 4-year gross compound wage increase of 9.8%, or basically 2.4% a year. I know that there's some the information that's floating around out there is that there's a 3% general wage increase of January 1, 2015 as part of this agreement, but you really shouldn't count that as part of this agreement because it was ratified as part of the 2012 National Agreement. In fact, Article 1, Section 1 of the tentative agreement identifies that, but you should read that fine print as President Simpson has stated. But again, it's a 4-year gross compound wage increase of 9.8%. When you net out the increased medical costs that you're going to have to pay for the health care benefits, it nets out to be 2% on average per year. This is bad because with the health care costs netting out those wage increases, the wage increases in this agreement simply do not keep pace with inflation. Inflation was 2.2% in 2016. It was 2.2% up till September of 2017 of this year, and it's projected to be over 2% each year proceeding forward for 2018 and for 2019. So again, the wage increases of this deal don't keep pace with inflation. And to basically summarize the high notes here, the healthcare changes are clearly cost shifting, extracting approximately $70 million annually from railroaders' wallets. This is going to impact you, your wives, and your children. The additional $50 million in savings is from the plan design features that discourage you from utilizing your healthcare benefits. So in other words, you're going to avoid the medically necessary care that you need until a later date, and quite frankly, it's going to potentially lead to more extreme issues that you're going to have with getting your treatment. So we already pay enough for our health care. We are a brother's keeper. We should not burden sick members, spouses, and children with higher out-of-pocket expenses, again, especially in a round where we've already done the research and found a way to get to the savings that the carriers are looking for without taking it out of your pockets. The wages, again, do not keep pace with inflation. If you read the fine print, you're going to find that there are several pitfalls to this agreement. At the end of the day, we ask you to please thoroughly review the tentative agreement with particular attention to the health care. Ask yourself if you and your fellow coworkers, your fellow union brothers and sisters and their families can afford the increased costs out of pocket for your health insurance. Think about what it's going to cost you annually with these changes. Ask yourself if you really can afford to go to the doctor or to the specialist once these changes take place.
Brothers and sisters, once again, there's been some question about who I'm speaking for in this process. You all should know that I speak only as the president of the BMWED. My primary position in this union is to honor the wishes and the needs and the demographic needs and the craft needs of BMW members. That's who I'm talking to. That's who I'm trying to reach, because we have a fight coming and we plan to stay in the fight. There have been comments and questions surrounding charges and things of union officers that were in this appeal to reason. The BMW National Vision did not endorse this, didn't research it, don't know if it's true, untrue, and have had nothing to do with circulating the appeal to reason. We also intend to put up on the website a link or some connect where that you can ask questions. You can pose anything that you may have heard as a rumor, anything that's questionable when you take your calculator out and do the math, go through the 24-page agreement and go through our stuff that we have hung up on the website. If you have questions that you can't solve with your calculator, we'll have a place for you to post those questions, and we'll answer them periodically as time goes on until bargaining's over. And those things will be posted on here somewhere. But what we really critically need today is for BMW members to stay together, to stay strong, to learn and understand the facts as they are, without anyone tainting them, without me subjecting anyone to something that's not true, which I hope to never do. But rather than take my word or anybody's word, take the agreement, take your calculator, take some time and sit down with your family at your kitchen table and go through this stuff and understand how it will affect you. If you're old like me, you may use healthcare a lot, and this will take all your income away. If you're 20 years old with no kids and no wife and never going to have children and don't use the healthcare, then you might be fine with these wage increases. But just remember this, medical inflation continues to go up, and hopefully you'll continue to get older, and hopefully you'll live long enough that you need to use the healthcare like us older folks do. So think about your neighbor and think about your coworker when you're thinking about this agreement. And someday, if you're a young person, you may actually be in the position that other folks are in with more medical costs and higher costs. This agreement, in my view, does nothing but place a large burden on sick people or people who are going to become unhealthy, and it's uncalled for, it's unnecessary, and unneeded. So stay with us, stay strong, and continue to stay engaged in this process. If we don't have the membership educated and informed, then we won't win. So if you have questions, please ask them and we'll get back to you. We may update along every 3 or 4 weeks just to see how things are going, but I don't see anything happening with BMWE till either these other unions ratify or they don't ratify the tentative agreement. We will know more probably in, I don't know what their pace is, what they plan to do, but I'm certain we won't be back at the bargaining table until the process for the CBG unions is over with regard to ratification. Thank you.
What do we want? Health care! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Health care! When do we want it? Now!
It's a big issue to us. We all have families, we're out here to take care of them.
I'm here to inform you today, with the entire bargaining committee present, that a voluntary agreement, in our opinion, is not possible in this round.